Hey, welcome back to the Walking with Jaguars podcast. Today we have my friend Emily Becker. She is an artist, a potter, a world traveler, a digital nomad, a polyglot, and a doula. Just a all-around maker of life without borders, and a very special soul that I've had the good fortune of having cross my path. Um, Welcome. Is there any other labels you like slapping on?
No, I've never been described that way before, but thank you for your generosity. Um, yeah, I'm a writer also, so that's a big part of my day to day.
Hmm. Yep, 100%. I forgot that one. Good addition. uh, okay, let's just kick it off and just kind of dive straight in. What was the moment you realized you wouldn't live a normal life?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think that it happened really young. I don't know if I could pinpoint how old I was exactly, but I've always felt like I didn't belong necessarily in the place I grew up. So, for context, I grew up in a small rural town in Illinois, um, 2,000 people. My parents grew up there, their parents grew up there. Um, and I always just kind of wanted out. I was pretty um, restless growing up there, always felt like it didn't fit. Um, But when I was in high school, I started making more art and thinking about what I wanted to do next. And it was kind of experimenting with a lot of things at the time. And um, there was one moment when I was in my last year of high school. My little sister had a brain aneurysm, and it turned my whole world upside down. And at that moment, after months and months of her going through surgeries and that whole experience, I just decided, like, no, now I almost have to live for both of us, and I don't have any more excuses to stay stuck. So I just decided that I was going to take a different path after that and really go for it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you know, the call out into the wild I feel like is there for so many of us. And like that's why I appreciate you so much because you just full sent it, you know. So I think was the first adventure the Peace Corps Africa adventure?
No, I actually, when I was in college, I was invited to do a service immersion trip to Bogota, Colombia. That was my first time out of the US. I was there for 10 days and it was beautiful. The experience was really life altering. And but that's not where it really started necessarily. It started when I came back because after seeing what I saw there, I had to go back. I was like, I met this nun, and she was one of the leaders, one of the community members that took us to different communities. And um, she told us her life story, and it was wild. Like, she had been kidnapped from by the FARC, and she underwent torture and came out of it only with more love in her heart and wanting to give back more to the communities around Bogota and beyond. Her name's Norma. So, in case she's listening from beyond, she was my first mentor. And I'm not Catholic. I grew up Catholic, but I actually had this big reckoning with Catholicism because of her, because obviously, being a Catholic nun, I was like, you know, is she going to just tell me about Jesus Christ and then that's it. But no, her existence is so much more than that. And yeah, when I got back to Chicago. Um, I was 19 at the time. I sent her this email in horrible Spanish, like probably 90% Google Translate. And I told her, I don't know what's going on in me, but I feel like I need to go back and I don't know how. And she was like, well, just come spend the summer with me. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. So I booked a plane ticket that day and I sent her the date and time I was arriving in Bogota. And this was before eSIMs existed. So, 6 months later, I arrive in Bogota and I have no way to contact her. I like tried to use a payphone and it didn't work. So I was like wandering around the airport looking for this nun. I found her and she took me to the community and I spent the summer there.
Is that when you first started like really dialing in Spanish too?
Yeah, my Spanish was okay because in the 6 months between when I got back from Bogota the first time and then when I left for the summer, I really made a huge effort. Like, I listened to music in Spanish 24/7. I was watching series in Spanish. I was constantly going to restaurants just so I could, try to practice. And I was probably really annoying at the time because I was like just so laser focused and I knew that I had to learn this language, so I completely immersed myself in it. Luckily in Chicago, there's a huge Spanish speaking community, so it was pretty easy to plug myself into that. But yeah, by the time I got there, I was like maybe intermediate at best. And I just, yeah, was like a sponge and really learned, in the street, which is really funny because like I was working with young people. So I was teaching English and also helping out with this youth group. And the youth group is all about, helping young people have better alternatives because there are a lot of drugs in the area and it's a pretty rough neighborhood. I would, for people to understand, like this is pretty close to what you see in Brazil with the favelas. So, it's rough out there. And the Spanish I was learning was like by listening to like 15-year-olds talk to each other. So my nun mentor who just dropped me in this community and she didn't even live there. She like dropped me with this family and was like, okay, I'll see you over the weekend when I come. And I was like, okay. Um, when she came back, I was saying all kinds of things. And she's like, why are you talking like that?
Ah, lots of slang.
Yeah, like completely slang. Like horrible, like where now that I speak Spanish fluently, I'm like, what was I saying? Yeah.
What kind of things are you doing in like the day to day down there?
So I met this other nun who was there more frequently. Her name is Helena. And she was like, I need help. Can you help me? And I didn't really understand what she meant. And she was like, basically, I go around and I cure people with plants. Okay, this is the first time. I'm 19 years old. I'd never met anybody like that. And I was hooked. I was so excited. I'm like, what do you mean? And she just had this like bundle of herbs and this pot of hot water. She's like, I'm going around to people's homes and I just need help. I need an assistant. So I'm locked in. I'm like, let's do this. So I went with her every day around town to different people that were in town. And these are people who have, like, horrible open wounds on their feet or their legs. I'm so squeamish, so, like, seeing that and not reacting and trying to be, like, centered and this is so normal for me, was really hard. So basically, I realized that she just wanted me to hold people's hands and just to be there and comfort them while she was cleaning their wounds or helping them with diabetes care and different things. And so I was just like basically invited into these people's homes. And it was like the definition of what a house is changed for me because I was seeing people living in like lamina, like the tin roof, but that's like the whole house, like shacks with dirt floors and um very little around them. And I just saw so much beauty in the people and how they were receiving me and the interaction between them and the nurse and just their whole concept of life and happiness and getting by was really world changing for me because I'd never experienced anything like that. Um, so yeah, I was just like holding people's hands as they were getting these like painful treatments done and going from house to house. And then at lunchtime, I would go to the comedor and I would have lunch with the little kids in the neighborhood. And some of the things that I was eating, like I had no idea what they were. One day I ate horse and I didn't know it. Everybody thought it was so funny because they're like, caballo, caballo. And I was like, oh, what's caballo? And then I didn't realize it. So I would have lunch, and then in the afternoon, I'd teach my English classes. And then usually in the evenings, people would just come over to the house I was staying in and just chat and drink agua de panela or chocolate. Um, it was really slow. Like I didn't do much, so to speak, and it was really the first time I'd ever paused like that or had the ability to pause in that way and just, no phone. I didn't have a SIM card. I didn't have Wi-Fi. It was like when I wanted to check in with my parents, I would just go down to like the internet cafe and pay a couple of pesos for some internet and just send a text really quick. I'm alive. I'm okay. I'm sure my mom was, like, anxiously waiting for those texts every couple of days because I didn't really tell my parents I was doing this until a couple of days before, and I was like, "So remember how I went to Colombia for 10 days with the group from school?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna go back by myself." And they just yeah, they were like, "What do you mean? You're gonna go to Colombia by yourself? You're 19 years old." Like, what are you gonna do there? What could you possibly wanna do there? And I had this feeling like, I just have to go. I have to go. I have to do this. Something inside me was lighting up at that point, like a spark had been created, and I just couldn't really explain it to anybody. I felt really alone. Even the people that went with me to the first trip, they were like, okay, yeah, the trip was cool, but like, yeah, moving on. And I was like, no, this is everything and nothing, and I have to go, and just having this huge experience, And I don't want to downplay how impactful the trip was for other people because I know that it was, but for me, it was just more than I could ever explain.
Hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Really interesting that Colombia was the first place you went to, because that was the first place I went. Like I'd never left Australia, and then I was like, I'm going to Colombia, and my parents were like, please, like, can you just go to Europe or something? I was like, no, like this is the spot.
Yeah, my parents said that too. I remember my dad was like, "We have Italian heritage. You should go to Italy." I was like, "You have Italian heritage. You should go to Italy. I'm gonna do this thing."
Yeah, yeah. For me, the signal was always Latin America. You know, there's just something so special about Latin America.
I love chaos. So I was like, drop me in the middle of nowhere and I'll find my way. How do you explain that to your parents?
Yeah, but to some degree, it's like the complete inverse, right? Because it's almost like the environment is chaos, but the actual day to day life is simple, like so simple. Whereas like in the West, it's kind of like the environment is like artificially calm, but like the people are all just spastic.
Wow, yeah, exactly. I think always was really averse to anything that I felt like wasn't real. Like I always had a filter and I could always tell, you know, like I hate going to hospitals, obviously because of what happened to my sister, but like I just hate those kinds of like sterile environments. They always made me really uncomfortable. Like, why is everybody pretending? Like, just take the mask off. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long were you down in Colombia for?
A whole summer.
Yeah, right. Nice.
And when I came back, I was like so happy, but so destroyed because I didn't know what to do with all that information. And I was like, do I write about it? Do I make art about it? How do I tell my friends about it? And I tried. I definitely tried, but I was like really stuck in my head, like having to go back to school and just do life in a big metropolis was like really nuts.
I don't think people realize like how much living in big cities affects your like nervous system too. Like when you live like real rural for a while, you get really sensitive, you know? And when you go back into those cities, like the amount of like noise and smells and busyness. I remember I was living rurally in like northern BC and like ranchland, and I ended up going back to Toronto when I was living in Canada, and I could feel my whole system like callousing day by day just to protect myself from the chaos.
Yeah, I definitely felt like that. And also Chicago, I love Chicago. Whenever I go back, I'm like really excited to see my people and see how the city has changed every time I go back. But just the level of noise and the amount of people around, it's such a shock to the system. It's like, and I don't live in a rural area now. Like I live in San Cristobal and I live in the middle of town, but the vibe is so different. It's all colonial architecture. It's loud. Like there's a lot of different noises that happen and just in Mexico in general, like anywhere you live. Like the water truck and the gas truck and just everything, yeah, everything, but it's different in Chicago because it's, like, all of the noise and none of the community.
Mm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, that was like a big lesson for me as soon as I started traveling and like going into those places that are like the barriers and the favelas and like kind of seeing how they live. This like idea that in the West we've become so independent as individuals that we don't actually need anyone else, and because of that we become kind of isolated, Whereas when you see those communities, they're so interwoven because they actually need each other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true, and also, for me, coming from the context in which I grew up, it's always been really hard to ask for help, and I know that this is something that is all over, like, the mental wellness space now, like, learn how to ask for help, but it's really true. It's really true because, like, you can't participate in the help economy if you're not receiving it. Like, it really is reciprocal, and you can't just be always, quote unquote, there for your neighbors. Because how do you know how to do that if you've never been on the other end? So now it's really normalized for me because I've been living outside of the US for over 8 years. But at first, I was like, what do you mean I can just go, ask somebody if they have a spare tomato or, ask them to help me light my leña so that I can cook tonight? How do I do that? Like that concept was so foreign to me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you finished in Colombia. Then what happened once you were back in Chicago?
I became quite radicalized, I would say, like politically speaking. I I did a lot of volunteering. I worked with kids. I loved that. Um, I was also into community organizing. Got into some trouble. um, all good trouble though. Just disrupting. I wanted to be a disruptor at that point, and I felt like I could. I think that, there was so much brewing in my mind, and I just felt a sense of responsibility. Um,
To take the system down?
yeah, just me, just me and my ideas. Isn't that so? Yeah, I was like, I just had a lot of energy, and I felt like once I saw what was happening in a different way, I was like, how is the world like this? How are people walking around and not understanding what is going on? And I just wanted to have the like, two megaphones like screaming at people, which is so funny because I'm so not like that anymore. But that was my response to it. I just wanted to tell anybody who would listen about what I was thinking, what I was feeling. Um, and yeah, I finished college. I studied in Merida in Mexico for a little while. Um, Mostly because I was just getting in trouble for civil disobedience all the time, and I was like, okay, I gotta get out of here because this is not going well for me. And then Trump did, and I was like, I'm out. So I studied abroad in Merida for the second to last trimester of college. I came to San Cristobal during that time. This was 2017. I loved it. I learned about the Zapatistas and basically went back, graduated, and then joined the Peace Corps later that year. And I left for Mozambique in August of 2017.
Yeah. I remember talking to you one night when you were over at my place having dinner and you were telling me about your experiences in Africa. And it's funny because, like, to some degree, like, I've never been, right? But I've done a lot of Latin America. So to some degree, I'm like desensitized of like the intensity of sometimes like of the experiences in Latin America. But when I hear like you speaking about Africa, like it's all new to me.
Yeah.
What was the experience like landing in Africa as a young white girl in the Peace Corps?
What was it like? It was a huge shock, of course, because I had never been to that part of the world before. Also, my discernment process in deciding to go there was kind of crazy because I didn't want to go to Africa. I was like, send me to Peru or Guatemala. I was so sure that they were going to send me to a Spanish speaking country because I spoke Spanish. My Spanish was pretty good. By the time I graduated college, I was pretty fluent. So I could not believe that they sent me my acceptance letter and they're like, you're going to go to Mozambique or you're not going to go anywhere. And I was like, wait, where the fuck is Mozambique? So, I called my mom, and I don't often ask my mom for advice, like, blatantly, but I was like, "Mom, I don't know what to do." And she's like, "You need a challenge. You need to be challenged." I'm like, "My life is me challenging myself. What part of that do you not understand?" She's like, "No, a real challenge, something that's really going to take you out of your comfort zone." And my mom is like, she's happy for me no matter what I choose to do. I really love that about my parents. Like, they're watching me do all this crazy shit and they're like terrified, but still like, okay, you do you. You know, they've never tried to push me in one way or the other. I think that they just knew that even if they tried, that I wasn't going to listen. So when my mom said that, I was like, okay, I'm going to take her seriously. And I decided to go. So yeah, I didn't really like learn that much about Mozambique before going. I read a couple books, but I feel like that barely touched the surface. I read a couple books about the history. Um, yeah, I arrived, and then the first 3 months I was living with this family. And so during the first 3 months of Peace Corps, you go through training, right? So you have to learn the national language or any dialect. Um, so I learned, so I knew I was going to have to learn Portuguese, which is like similar enough to Spanish that I felt pretty confident about it. I really only focused on that. So I get there, I move in with this family. They had only had one volunteer live with them previously, and it was a guy. And I think that they were still pretty not used to having a foreigner live with them, which is perfectly understandable. And they were just so beautiful. Like my host mom was this amazing, powerful woman who like her day-to-day life and just the things that she would do every day, it just blew my mind. Like she'd get up at the crack of dawn just to go cut wood to make a fire or go get fish from the river or different things like that. So just observing her and seeing how she did things really blew my mind. Also, because when you watch somebody do anything that they've been doing for the last 40 years, you know, on a day-to-day basis, something that's really hard for you, like cooking and cleaning and building things, they just make it look so easy. Everything just looks so easy, and obviously it's not. Um, but there was quite a language barrier because my host mom, her first language is Shangana, and I didn't know anything. Shangana is a Bantu language, so it's really similar to like Zulu from South Africa or Xhosa from South Africa. It's like all part of this family of languages. And like we just couldn't communicate with words. It was all gestures and as you know, like there's just a feeling and you just get it or you think you do and then yeah, something changes your mind, but also like she really did view me as her daughter. Like, I'd be showering, and when say showering, I mean there's a concrete room that only has three walls, and there's a bucket and there's a drain. So I'd be pouring this lukewarm water on myself, and she'd just walk right in, and I'd be completely naked, and she'd grab a rock and start cleaning my feet with it.
Uh-huh.
She'd be like, "You're dirty. You're so dirty." She'd be cleaning my feet. Um, like, no boundaries. And also, she had a 3-year-old grandson that lived with her. And like he would walk in while I was bathing, or like he would just walk into my room at any time of day. Like I had no privacy. So that was a big shock as well. Because in Mozambique, like people's lives are shared with one another. They their space bleeds into the space of everything around them. The idea of like being in your room with the door closed, or being in your even in your house with the door closed, is very foreign. It's like, what do you mean you're in there alone? Like, what could you possibly be doing in there?
Yeah, right. Just no privacy. It's just all community first.
Yeah, so that was a huge adjustment. And during those 3 months, I was like, all right, well, this is it. And I just accepted that that was how it was going to be, and that I'd probably never have full privacy, at least for 2 years when I was there. So, anyways, I finished training. I got sent to my first site, um, where I was living with another Peace Corps volunteer, and then I had a safety and security problem, and I had to move. So I went from like being with this other volunteer and trying to integrate in the community with her to being alone. And so I moved into this house. I'm still like kind of traumatized by what happened to me. I was really scared of everything. And I didn't have very good access to anything. Like my house was hooked up to the grid, but barely. Like I sometimes would have electricity at night. I had to carry water. Sometimes, so it's like really funny because I had a bathtub in my house, but like no water came out.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like sometimes every once in a while I would hear my neighbors like scream and they'd be like, "Water!" And then I would like go turn it on and like fill up all the buckets in my house. But that was a really rare occasion. Most of the time I was carrying water from the shared well. And yeah, so my house was on a compound with four other houses and then a big house. And yeah, I shared everything with my neighbors. It was just total trust in people, and also learning how to ask for help and being completely showed up with like everything. They're like, "You don't know how to do this. You can't carry water." I felt like a 5-year-old, honestly. Less than that. A newborn baby. Because to be fair, there were 5-year-olds that could do everything better than I could.
Uh-huh.
They're like carrying their baby siblings on their backs, like perfectly tied with the capulana. And then like someone would be like, "Carry my baby." And I'd be like, "Okay." Like trying to tie it the right way, and then watching a 5-year-old do it in like 2 seconds. So yeah, there was that.
How are you cooking when you were there?
So sometimes I would cook with charcoal. Sometimes I'd cook with wood. But my neighbors didn't really trust me to do it by myself. They were like, "Ooh, white woman, fire, danger," which is really fair, to be honest. But I did learn how to do it. So I had this like metal stove. Funny enough, like I bought an electric one, but because my electricity didn't ever work and it used to shock the crap out of me, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it the way my neighbors are doing it. So yeah, I would cook basically like in this big pot on this like metal stove thing and then burn something underneath it. So wood or charcoal. I liked using wood better because it makes your food taste better.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. So that just everything was fire cooking. There was no like, was they just like quick meals, or was it like always an endeavor?
Absolutely not. Like the quick meal in where I lived was loaves of bread with something called bajia, which is like these fried little bean patties. And so, like, if I wanted to eat something, if I was like super hungry and didn't have 2 hours to to prepare something to eat, I would have like I'd make salad with like cucumber and tomato and onion. That was like if those things were available. Like sometimes I couldn't even get like cucumbers at the market. Like there would literally be tomatoes and onions and that's it. So I'd eat that with, like salt and vinegar and bread. Like those are the in Mozambique or like day old rice.
What was the day-to-day life there?
So I was supposed to be an English teacher, and that didn't really make any sense at my school because a lot of the students were learning Portuguese and they spoke Xangana. Everybody in my community spoke Xangana. So I had to learn Xangana because I'd be like speaking Portuguese, and at that point I was fluent in Portuguese. I'd be speaking like having a full conversation with myself, and nobody would understand me. I'd be like, oh, wait. And I'm talking like to children, you know? And so I was like, okay, I have to learn Shangana. So I had just spent 3 months learning Portuguese. I get to this place, and they're like, sorry, you need to learn this other language. There's no Google Translate for it. There are no books, nothing. Just listen to people speak and learn. I had never learned a language like that. I was pretty sure I could not do it, but I tried anyways. And I had this tutor who was always drunk. So I'd like arrive at his house and he'd be like, and so he did help me a little bit, but I really just learned with the neighborhood kids. They would teach me. So I did that a lot. I would just hang out with the neighborhood crianças and just kick it with them. I had like coloring books that I brought from the States and colored pencils and crayons and stuff. So basically, I would like bribe them, like, hey, you guys can color, but you have to teach me Shangana. And they're like, okay. I did that a lot. Yeah, I did more of like a health project because when I realized that teaching English made absolutely no sense there, um, I'd like go to the hospital. I had a couple youth groups, so I was doing HIV prevention and youth empowerment work. So, I mean, whatever that means, like youth are empowered already. Um, but also like there are a lot of social issues in Mozambique, like early child marriages and things like that. So, there are programs in place to try to help that not happen anymore. So, I think it was mostly just having conversations with young people and treating them like normal people, like literally just speaking to them and asking them questions about what they think about things going on and opening up spaces where they felt like they could trust me enough to share their opinions on things and to ask questions that they didn't feel like they could ask other adults. I think also it helped like being a foreigner and also having the assumption of them knowing that I thought differently from the people around them. So it was like, yeah, if we say that child marriage is weird to this white woman, she's probably going to think the same. So there was like an assumed level of confidence, I guess. So yeah, I did a lot of different programming with them. And I also spent a lot of time peeling garlic and peanuts because I would go to my neighbor's house and they'd be like, "Do you want to eat with us?" And I obviously would say yes. So my contribution was always like the most menial task because they didn't trust me to do it. So I would like split the coconuts and like make the coconut milk was like the most advanced thing I was allowed to do. Which is like fair because I was terrible at everything. Like smashing the peanuts in the pilon. It's like this giant wooden like mortar and pestle, but I'm talking like it's like the size of a small child. And like the pestle part is like, or is it the mortar part? The long part that you use to smash it is like 4 feet tall and it's like this thick. So you have to like grab it and then with absolute precision bring it down into the where the peanuts are. They do it, and it's like completely it's a dance. It's beautiful. It looks perfect. I do it and things are falling onto the ground. Things are flying everywhere. It's just a mess. So, yeah, a couple times of that, like, my neighbors were like, "No, you're gonna do this. You peel the peanuts."
Uh-huh.
I've never been so humbled in my life. So
There's just this scene in that movie Avatar, like the James Cameron one, and when the main character is like learning how to live like the natives, and his teacher is just like, "You're like a baby."
and it's so funny, like, how cliché it is. It's like, I was fighting against that in my mind so much. I'm not gonna be a cliché. I'm gonna be the first woman, the first volunteer that comes here and does everything right. Like, how silly is that? Like, why did I think I was gonna be the exception? Obviously not. I knew nothing. I knew nothing. And I think as soon as I realized that, I was free. I honestly feel like I could move through the world and just be a student to life and have this attitude of, I don't have to walk into every room and know more than anybody in that room. That doesn't make me more legit at all. It's like stripping that away gives you so much freedom because you walk into situations completely open to learn and you don't have to put on a mask and you don't have to pretend like there's something that you have to offer. Like maybe you do, but I don't ever assume that because it's just not always helpful. And also like the dynamic of being a privileged white person going to Africa is like it's heavy. It's heavy because or going anywhere with any kind of privilege and walking through the world with that is like it can be dangerous, it can be dangerous for communities. Will walk in and think that they just because of where they're from and the experiences they've had in life, that they would know how to fix any of the problems that are there.
Yeah, or that they're like owed something too,
Yeah,
like owed
yeah,
respect.
yeah. And with Peace Corps, like I have such a complicated relationship with Peace Corps because on one hand, it gave me the opportunity to go to this place and have this experience that really marked me, it changed my brain chemistry forever. It was the most beautiful thing I could have ever asked for. It was like this amazing gift, and it was difficult and it was raw and real. Um, but it's also a colonial structure, and it was also created so that the United States can have a better political position in developing countries, which is fucked up. So it's like being part of a system like that as a volunteer, which, like, by the way, I went in like to be a teacher, and there was no reason why they should have thought that I would be a good teacher or to like implement any of these programs. I can say that I trust myself because I know that I have good intentions and I would never do anything to harm anybody, but like the assumption that I was 22 years old, okay? I didn't know anything about anything. So, like, the assumption that, like, I could go in and create something worthwhile in this community is just kind of absurd, but it's also beautiful because I have these relationships, and I did some really cool stuff while I was there, and I just loved it. Like, I just absolutely loved being there. I wanted to stay, but the Mozambican government did not wanna give me a visa. They're like, "Okay, bye-bye. Goodbye." Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories that you've told me before is you were hitchhiking and you ended up in like a little town. I was wondering if you could tell that story.
Oh, so hitchhiking in Mozambique is really common. Like, everybody does it, not just foreigners. So sometimes it's even safer than taking public transportation because there are a lot of crashes and the drivers drive really fast. So it's like sometimes when I'd go from one place to another, I would default to hitchhiking. So after about a year in Mozambique, I was pretty good at it. Like, it's an art. Hitchhiking is an art. You don't just stick your finger out and like it just it doesn't just happen. So I was pretty ambitious and I wanted to go from the southernmost point of Mozambique to the northernmost point, and just by hitchhiking. So I was like about halfway through, and by the way, I did not tell Peace Corps where I was or what I was doing. I didn't tell any of my friends what I was doing because I didn't want anybody to rat me out. Some of my closest friends in Peace Corps, they don't even know that I did this because like I just haven't told them. Anyways, so I'm like halfway through and I was in this 18-wheeler, and he had told me he was going to Sofala, which is the state and right in the middle. It's like the most dangerous place in Mozambique. It's where a lot of the guerrilla warfare happens. They're like guerrilla fighters in the jungle that will just terrorize the cars and whatnot and loot them. And anyways, a lot of shit that happens there. So I'm in this 18-wheeler, and he's like, I'm going to Beira, which is the biggest city in Sofala. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds good. And then we're like halfway through and it's getting dark. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to stop here and I'm just not going to keep going with you. I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? So I'm in the middle of nowhere and he's asking me to get out. And I'm like, okay. So I get out with my backpack, and he just keeps going. Like, he could have taken me, But I think he was like, if something happens to this American woman in my car, like, in some shit. And so I kind of saw it that way at the time, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, it must be, like, pretty rough out there." So it's getting dark, and I just pick a path, and mind you, there's nothing around. Okay, it's dirt road, and then it's, like, semi-arid desert around. Like, a bush here, a bush there, a tree here, a tree there, some houses in the distance. And so I'm like, okay, just pick a path and start walking. And I had every intention of just camping, right? So I had my tent, but I had to get far enough away from the road that nobody could see me because I didn't want something bad to happen to me. So I just start walking, and eventually I get like kind of close to this house, and this kid runs out and he's like, Mzungu, which means white person. And he's so excited. He's like, I just found this rare animal in my house. Like, so excited. And I'm just like, hi, can I camp here? This kid's like 4 years old, doesn't speak Portuguese. And he's like, "Ooh." At this point, he's speaking, I forget, I think it was Shona. I think, yeah, Shona is it's a different language. I didn't understand anything he was saying besides Mzungu, white person. So he runs into the house. This woman comes out. I ask her if I can camp. She says yes. She's not quite as excited to see me. She's just like, yeah, fine. So I set up my tent and I had like saltine crackers and peanut butter. So I'm just like sat like in the tent. Like, what am I gonna do tomorrow? Like, how's the rest of this gonna be? Like, what the hell is going on? And then they like came out and offered me dinner, so I had dinner with them. They were so sweet. They're the most gracious hosts. And like my tent is not necessarily like in their backyard, but it's like the only house around. So I'm like a little bit away from like where they've combed the sand, which is like where their yard ends, I guess. So I'm like just outside of that. Um, I go to sleep, didn't sleep very well, but I get woken up at like 5 in the morning by a horde of screaming children. And they're just like, we have to see her. Like, we have to see thing. So I like open my tent and they're just like, you would have thought that they saw some kind of alien creature. They just went nuts. They were so excited. And they're like touching my hair, like grabbing it. And I'm just like, what is going on? This is not completely new. Like, this had happened to me before, of course, because like kids are just so innocent. Like, they're just not used to seeing people like me. So they were so pumped. Um, and yeah, I packed up my tent and then tried to get a ride again. It was pretty tumultuous. I ended up one night I had to sleep on this porch with this other woman, this Mozambican woman who was like, okay, I'll sleep for a couple hours and then you sleep for a couple hours. So we're like taking turns sleeping on this porch in the middle of nowhere, like just on the concrete. Um, yeah, it was honestly such a wild ride. Like I ended up making it up as far as I could go north. Um, but there was some Taliban activity. Like I would have had to cross through this Taliban territory, so I didn't do that because I was like, this feels like real danger. I'm not gonna do that.
Every now and then you hit the risk limit, you know?
For sure. And it's like Taliban? Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I'm American after all. Like this is not going to go well. Yeah, that was a pretty insane trip. I also like at one point I was in an open back like a pickup truck sitting on a bag of coconuts for like 10 hours or something like that. And there was this woman with two goats. And at one point, like the hatch of the truck, it fell open and one of the goats like rolled out. It was out there and quite a scandal. And I'm just like sitting on this bag of coconuts, holding on for dear life, thinking, is this the day I die? Am I also gonna roll out of this truck?
Did they go back and collect the goat?
Yeah, yeah. She's screaming for the guy to stop. He can't hear her. So we get like 100 meters after where the goat came out. Finally, he stops. She runs out. I run out to help her. The goat was fine. It's that most important brand. It was totally fine. It was walking. And then she was like, oh, the goat's pregnant. I was like, well, probably not anymore. So, yeah, that was a good time, that hitchhiking trip. Yeah, but I would hitchhike everywhere. I was like, every weekend, any chance I could. I was like, I need a break from my town. And I say that with so much love, like, because I do have still friends to this day from that town. And I love them. And I really enjoyed my time there. But the weeks go by so slowly when you're not on your phone or, in front of a screen all day or, jumping from one thing to the next constantly. So it really did feel like time moved more slowly. And by the time the weekend would roll around, I was like, okay, I need like some kind of external interaction. Like need to go like have a bag of chips or something.
See some new sand.
Yeah, and I would go to the capital a lot because I kind of had a double life. Like I had this group of like party friends in the capital city. They were really cool. They were like musicians and artists, and I always gravitate towards people like that. So, um I loved hanging out with them because it was like a numbing, like coping mechanism for sure. And was it the healthiest? No. But I do have like great memories from just hanging out with them and like going around the capital city, like doing crazy stuff. Yeah. Dancing a lot and it was nice because I was like 5 hours away. Well, 5 hours like hitchhiking, 7 hours on public transportation from the capital city, so I'd go every once in a while to decompress.
Uh-huh. Let loose a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was down living in Bolivia, when I was in the jungle, and I was like pretty rural, like we were basically living in virgin Amazon, and the closest town would be like an hour away hitchhiking, and like I was hitchhiking all the time down there, and the hitchhiking was just hilarious. Like it was the only way to get around. There wasn't really public transport. Every now and then, like a collectivo would roll through. Um, but the hitchhiking is like you just got in what you could get in, and they were super like lovely to try to help the gringo out get to town. So like there was one time I was in a trailer with cows, like a 18 wheeler, and I was like in the back with the cows. There was another time when like this van pulled over and there was like it was full. So there would have been 11 people in a seven seater, and they pulled over and they were like, "Get in." And I was like, "What do you mean get in?" You know what I mean? It's like literally it's already people sitting on laps. And then like I just got in and then someone sat on my lap, you know? And they're just like, "Get this gringo to town." I was like, "What the fuck is going on here?" It's like it's insane, but it's also epic. And they make it work with like such limited resources, you know? And like I cherish those memories.
Yeah, anything really good. I feel like I can tell you this because you've been there, but like I've realized that I've normalized this stuff, so I don't even know what to say about it sometimes because for me it's like, yeah, someone was sitting on your lap, duh. Like, or somebody handed you their child. Like people used to give me their babies all the time. They're like, "She looks trustworthy. Take this baby." So I'd be like holding a baby that I didn't know, like, on public transit, and then all of a sudden, like, the mom would get up and she'd be like, "Give me the baby."
Uh-huh.
And they just take the baby away, and I was like, "Oh, but I just bonded with this little child. Now you're gonna take her away?"
I know you're probably a little rusty in the Shangala. If you can whip out a sentence or two, I'd love to just hear like the sound of it.
Yeah. Okay. Minani Emily, um, hmm, nawala siyang Giza, Nicombela Mati, um, I don't know what else to say. Like, tell me to say something and I'll say it.
Are you cooking dinner tonight or can you feed me?
Nawala kucha?
Yeah, I imagine that was a fun experience. I just there's this book that I love. It's called Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes. And I don't know, have you read that? Yeah, write that down. You'd love it. It's about this American missionary who goes down and lives with this tribe in Brazil, and the they've never translated their language. So he was basically went down there and his mission was to learn their language good enough that he could translate the gospel to try and convert them. And the language is just completely foreign, like one of one. And it's just this guy's adventure trying to like put it all together. And the book ends and he ends up like leaving Catholicism and leaving being a missionary because he basically gets converted by them. And it's just epic.
I need to read that book. That feels like a universal experience.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think you would love it. And yeah, there's just so many good pieces in that book where their like identity and their culture is so firm in like who they are and what they are and what they do, you know. And he's down there, the same thing again. He's like trying to help them do things, you know. And basically like down there like they need canoes to live, and they basically like sometimes make these kind of crappy canoes out of like husk and sticks and stuff, but the Brazilians who are like up the river, they make the really nice like wood canoes, you know. So they come to him, they're like, Dan, all our canoes are rotten. We need a new one. And he's like, okay, like I'll buy you one, but like why don't I when I go up there, why don't I get the guy who makes the canoes to come down and like teach you how to make them? And they're like, yeah, that'd be so good. That'd be so good. We'd love that. So they make this like these plans, and this guy, the teacher comes down and they spend the week making like solid wood canoes out of trees. And the instructor doesn't touch anything and he gets them to make the whole thing. And they're all like super stoked at the end. They have like two epic canoes. The teacher leaves, and then like a year passes, and they're like, "Oh, Dan, the canoes are fucked. Can you get us a new canoe?" And he's like, you guys made the canoes. Like you learned how to do it." And he goes, "Oh no, we don't make canoes. That's for the Brazilians." And it's like, not only do they not care at all about what's going on in the outside world, it's like they actually repel it. Like they just won't even let it in. It's not who they are, you know?
Wow. That's so funny because I felt like in Mozambique sometimes that would happen. Like people would ask me to help them with their computer or something, which is like really funny because there are really only two places in town with reliable electricity to like use a computer. So I was like for example, the at the school, they're like, we need a better way to keep track of the grades. So I went and helped them learn how to use Excel, did all of this, work with them. Like it was a process of a few weeks, like training the teachers how to use Excel, like really basic stuff. And like, I don't say that to say that like they couldn't do it because of course they can, but they were like, okay, now you put in all the grades. I was like, I just spent all this time, like literally the same as what you just said. Like I spent all this time teaching you guys how to use Excel so that you could put in the grades. No, 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 no. You know how to do this better, so you do it. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not doing that because there were hundreds of students at the school. They would walk from 5, 6 miles away just to go to school. So there's so many students, and all the teachers are overwhelmed with how many students they have and all like the grade inputting process. You could feel the tension in the air every time a semester was ending because the teachers hated doing it. And then I was like, you guys hate doing it for just your students, but you want me to do it for the whole school.
Uh,
I think I said one time to them in a meeting, like, I am not a computer. And all of the teachers were like, eh, oh, eh, like surprised that I had said that. Like, what do you mean? That was always funny too, because like, since I was pretty plugged into the school, like I wasn't teaching English classes anymore, but I was always, invited to like all the teachers' meetings and stuff because I was still working with the students. The meetings were so funny. They'd be like, okay, the meeting's going to start at noon. So I know it's not actually going to start at noon because that's what they told us in training. But I didn't imagine 4 p.m. would be the actual starting time. So I'd get there at like 1 hour after the meeting was supposed to start. I'd get there and be like, okay, there's nobody here. I'm going to go home. So I'd go to leave, and then one person that just happened to be around would be like, oh, the meeting's going to start. So I'd wait again. And then another hour would go by. Oh, no, I'm going to go home. I'm tired of waiting. Same thing would happen again. So I'd end up waiting like 4 hours each time, which was hilarious because I would tell them, guys, just come find me at my house or at my friend's house when the meeting is starting, and I'll be there instantly. No, 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 it's going to start at noon. And it's like, no, it's going to start at like 4 p.m. or you never know. Like it could actually start at 12:30. Like you really just don't know. And then it's like the intense formality, like before speaking, you have to say like, what do they say? Like, bom dia mais uma vez. Eu sou professora Amélia. Eu ensino, whatever. Like, introduce yourself every single time you want to say anything. And you have to say, like, good morning again to everybody, and God bless us, and like a whole monologue before you even. It's like sometimes the thing you have to say before the meeting is longer than what you actually want to say. And I would get reprimanded by my colleagues all the time because I would just raise my hand, stand, and start talking. And they'd be like, "No, you can't do that. You have to stand up, you say this, you have to say that, You have to tell people who you are. I'm like, I've been here for a year. You guys know who I am. Like, what? And also, they were all men. Like, just to say, I was one of two female teachers. So it was like even worse for me because everything I did was wrong. Everything I did was like completely backwards for them. And I didn't care, to be honest. I was like, kids need to know about HIV. It's not going to hurt anybody for them to know about it. It's not going to hurt anybody to go get tested, you know, battling all the time.
So at this point, you're fluent in obviously English, Spanish, Portuguese. You speak some Shangala. How has your understanding of language changed your perspective of the world?
I think it makes me realize that I don't speak any language very well. It changes my perspective because, like, language is a pathway between what's happening in your brain and what is happening in someone else's. And the way that people express themselves says a lot about their context and culture and like even in Mozambique, the way that people say good morning and good afternoon and good night is like so indicative of their connection with the earth because it has to do with where the sun is and the moon is and the stars. So for me, it feels like you're not just learning another language, you're learning another way of thinking completely. Like you have to strip away all of your assumptions about how something is said because of the other languages you speak and then figure that out. Like when I was learning Maya, when I after I moved to Mexico, I was like mind blown by the way that the language, like what you learn about the culture and the people by learning the language. Like for example, in Maya, to say hello, how are you? A lot of the times you say bish awanil, which means how much work do you have left to do today? So funny because it's like, that's the way that people working in the fields, harvesting corn would greet each other because everybody's out there contributing to the community. And they're like, yeah, how much work do you have left to do? Like, that's how you say how you are. And also in Tzotzil, one of the languages spoken here in Chiapas, instead of saying, how are you, they say, how is your heart? Or they say, like, to say, I love you is, my heart sees your heart. Isn't that beautiful? It's like just another concept of love where, like, in Spanish, you say te quiero, which means I want you in English, which is like not actually what it means when you say te quiero, but it's like, you know, interesting that that's how we translate it in English and our concept of what love is, perhaps. So there's so much depth. And also, it's like language is a door to that depth. It's a way to understand what people really mean when they're speaking to you and what is behind everything that has to do with communication in a community. So it also like changed the way my brain works in the sense of I feel like having different ways of expressing the same thing makes my mind really plastic. in a way. Or, I mean, what is that? See, this is a language fart, brain fart.
Definitely nuance, right?
Yeah, like nuanced, and I feel like it can, like I'm more of a chameleon. I can understand where people are coming from a lot more in general, not just through different languages, but just like because you and I could be speaking English, but the way like your vocabulary and your understanding of language is different than mine because everybody speaks, expresses themselves differently. So when you meet someone new, you learn their language, essentially.
And to some degree, right, like the human experience doesn't really change that much, like between being human in different cultures, the actual experience of being human, but then the way that you use the words to explain or communicate, like, yeah, like what you're actually experiencing, I feel like it expands the world so much. Because then I learn like from like, I don't obviously speak like, very good Lakota or like Shipibo or anything like that, but like the little bits that I do know has changed the way in which I relate to nature and I like the way I relate to the sky and the earth, you know? But we all have that connection. So when we like live in this little world of only English, there's actually like a very limited amount of like thinking that can even take place. There's natural barriers in the way we're able to express our relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also like it's almost like when you start dabbling with plant medicine as well, you get exposed to a different language because the plants don't speak to you in English. They don't speak to you in language. Like the messages that come through are understood in a different way. Like ayahuasca didn't snake her way into my consciousness and speak to me exactly the way that another English speaking human would speak to me. No, she's showing me and communicating in a way that I don't even know how to explain, but the plants are constantly communicating with us. Animals are constantly communicating with us. Nature, everything is communication all the time. So, like, the variation between one language and another is like beautiful to understand because it's a gateway to that depth, but it's really limited still. Because, like you said, like, we might have been, we might have learned our first languages differently, but I learned English as a first language. Someone else learned Shipibo as a first language and has a completely different environment. But like, I think seeing the humanness of this experience also means recognizing that we are not nearly as different as we think we are. And yes, there's so much to learn from each other and so much exchange that happens, but at the core, it's just the same. Like I saw something recently where someone was talking about the word sonder and how it speaks to the day-to-day existence and seeing like the human connection in things like I love my parents. Like I want my parents to be healthy, for example. I think everybody wants that. I enjoy having a cup of tea with a friend. My tea might look different from somebody living in Syria, but like the feeling of sharing a warm beverage together is so universal and it's so close to what makes us human and the connection. And so I think that that's made it almost easier for me to feel comfortable in the discomfort of traveling and being in new places with different people because I always have it present that, things might be done differently here, or I might have to do something totally new and totally uncomfortable, but I'm sitting amongst people that have so much that I can learn from, and we're just doing the human experience together and existing on Earth, and nobody is better than anybody in any way. And so that's kind of what, like, the concept that radicalized me as well when I was so young, because I realized that on my trip to Colombia, I was like, wait, we're not different. Like, actually, we're the same. And like, let's just sit in that for a second.
Yeah. And I mean, like, coming from Australia, which is like very much like a single language country, there's still like an openness to the world. And not to say that all Americans are like this, but I swear, like, I meet Americans and they think the entire world is America, And it's just like us and everyone else and fuck them a little bit,
Yeah.
And it's like as soon as you're out there with these other like people and these other cultures and these other experiences, you're like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Like my understanding has to change radically very quickly. Like we're all human.
Yeah, it surprises me when people travel and they don't come to that conclusion. Like, I don't understand that because to me, it's like so normal, like, so duh. Like, obviously, spending time with people who have lived a different human experience is so enriching and so beautiful. But I think a lot of Americans are really resistant to that because of programming and propaganda and like the illusion of difference and the illusion of um, danger of other people. And I don't say that as someone who's like never had anything bad happen to her while traveling. Like shit has hit the fan, okay? I've seen like the worst people, or I shouldn't say the worst people, like people acting in a horrible way while traveling, and also people acting, I would say that's like 0.1% of what I've experienced, to be honest. Like, I've been really fortunate because I've been able to meet mostly really generous and kind people. So, yeah, like the unlearning from American colonialism is so intense, and like I don't know if it's ever possible to like fully get there where you've like decolonized your mind. I feel like that's maybe a conversation or like a worm or a rabbit hole for another day. But like the concept of unlearning that structure is really intense. Also because like where I grew up, even my family, I think they're all great people and kind and want the best for everybody. But I also think that the programming is just so hardwired. And I see people in my hometown still saying the same things that they said 20 years ago about the same people. The fear is so present. You know, if it's not such and such group coming to take their jobs, it's a different one. It's always like, it just seems like quite an effort, to always find a new enemy and to put your energy into things like that. But I'm really glad that that wasn't my path. And I always, yeah, I feel like I came out of the womb and I was like, what is that? What is that? This is this is weird. Get me out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The unlearning is such a big piece of the actual learning, because there's just so many programs around everything, around like how economy should be set up, how culture should be set up, things like marriage, things like love. It's just like, all of it. We don't realize how influenced we are, and like pulling out all of that junk creates so much freedom. Yeah. I'm curious, like, just if you want to just riff on this, what what do you think Westerners misunderstand about freedom?
Ooh. Hmm. I think that a lot of Westerners, sorry, think about freedom as like I'm free to make money the way that I want to make money and spend that money the way that I want to. It's very tied to economics and capitalism, which, if you ask me, like capitalism is the antithesis of freedom because it assumes a hierarchy. And because I lean towards anarchy, I just see that. Yeah, it's like such an illusion. And I think that they also conceptualize the West, conceptualize freedom as like, oh, I just lost my train of thought. I had it, it was here. Ah, I have it now. They conceptualize freedom as like the ability to climb the ladder and to be at the top of the pyramid, like seeing a clear path to that. That's what I think it is.
Hmm. Okay, talking about capitalism, right? Like making money is still an essential piece of the puzzle to some degree. And I know for myself, as soon as I like started going out into the world and having all these experiences, I knew very quickly that I wouldn't be going back to Australia. And an essential piece of that is like, okay, I need to make money online. I was wondering like where along your path you kind of cracked that code, and if it was something that you stumbled into almost accidentally, or like it was intentionally sought out.
Yeah, I looked for it because so when I finished in the Peace Corps, I moved to Mexico and I was working as a librarian in a language institute, just like a whole other side story, side quest. But when I was there, I was really busy with my work. I loved it, but I was like plotting and scheming the whole time because I was getting paid almost nothing. I shouldn't say that. That's like not fair. I was getting paid very little, like an average teacher's salary for that region of Mexico, which is like not enough for me to feel comfortable. So I started thinking about what I could do to make some money on the side and start saving everything. And I had this vision where I was like, if I could just, get a plot of land or something and like just live off the land somewhere. I don't know where, I don't know how. Like, I didn't have any of the steps planned, but I was like, okay, the first thing is I need to make money. So I thought about what I could do. And I was like, well, I'm a pretty good writer and I can write in three languages. So maybe I can make money writing. So I reached out to this woman who had a travel blog, and I was like, can I be a contributor on the blog? And can I charge you per post? She went for it, which is really cool. She really took a chance on me because I had no experience. I just had, well, no experience writing. I didn't know anything about SEO. I didn't know anything about blog writing. I just had like had all these life experiences and I wanted to write about them. So I started writing like travel guides about Mexico and Guatemala and all the other places I had been. So I kind of like realized that it could be kind of lucrative like, if I could figure out how to do this stuff as quickly as possible and as easily as possible, then I could probably make pretty good money at some point. And that's what I did. I just kind of like, the pandemic started and I had already kind of began this journey and I just went like head first into it. I learned about the Google algorithm and SEO, all the stuff that I don't really give a shit about, to be honest. But I feel like to be free and to be like financially free in a world that doesn't want you to be requires breaking the rules a little bit and also challenging yourself to be part of the system in a small way so that you could be outside of the system in a big way. Um, so yeah, like I just started getting clients. I started shifting slowly to working with just nonprofit organizations and things like that, which is an interesting thing because I do a lot of like fundraiser kind of work, like asking millionaires to donate to whatever foundation so that they can do like HIV and AIDS work, which is like not entirely soulless, right? There's a bigger purpose behind that. But like to get there, it's just kind of a lot of garbage. Like crafting words in a way that's lucrative to certain people. Um, but it's not bad. I honestly think that if people can find a way to make money in a way that's like not hurting anyone, of course, which is obviously always up for debate, um, then they should do that because like living and working abroad can be really tricky and it's also like it can be really hard also to get work doing other things. It's not impossible. Like there are a million ways that you could do that, but I just felt like this made the most sense to me with the skills that I had. So I just went for it and it's working out so far because I have a lot of free time. I shouldn't say free time because that's silly, but I have a lot of freedom to be able to make my art and that's really what matters to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I know for me, it was like, I gotta crack this code. If I don't crack this code of making money online, I'm gonna get stuck somewhere, you know? And I think there's a lot of people who are like living in Australia and the US and Canada who now at a point in like their journey where they realize like the environment around them isn't where they want to be, but they are stuck, you know, because they need to make income and they don't have the skills to do it online. And like I can make basically like a US salary with a laptop and a phone anywhere, you know? I can just like go on vacations and just work on the beach. I can just move to any country I want to. And also like to some degree, if you can make like a US salary living in Mexico or Costa Rica or Peru, or wherever it may be, like your money goes far, you know? So you actually can save a lot more too. And like the freedom that that's given me is, I don't know if there's anything that really compares because it really lets me live the life that I want to live. And because I get to do that, I learn all the lessons like spiritually and emotionally from that as like kind of a bit of a seed. But the integrity piece you brought up is such a big one. And that's something that I've battled so much. You know, like right now, I do a lot of like marketing work for companies. So I'll like run their Facebook ads and I'll like build websites and funnels and run emails and stuff. And it's so fucking insidious. You know, like running Facebook ads is like you write this copy and like create these creatives to just like push onto people against their will. And you can target it in such a way that it's terrifying. You know what I mean? Like, usually you're doing things in a way that's relatively general, like areas and countries and like interests and stuff. But like you can actually be like, you know, people who are this gender in this age group with these interests in this town and just bombard them with ads. And for me, I've like always worked in the wellness industry and not like bullshit wellness, like things that I actually believe are helping people. And that's kind of the only way I can like in my integrity do the work that I do. Cause I'm sure I could make more money fucking shilling insurance or some bullshit, But it's like I just cannot create that in the world using these fucking evil tools, you know? Or at least on the other side of everything I do, it's like people healing and people like feeling better and, learning and becoming better human beings.
Yeah, I also think that it's like the internet is so oversaturated with so much stuff like that that it's almost like adding to it is just adding more noise essentially. And I don't say that to say that it's like a bad thing. It's just like if you are using Facebook, for example, and like you're not discerning the things that you're reading on it, it's because like you're, you know, able to fall into the propaganda or the marketing tactics. So, like, if you're creating stuff like that, sometimes it does actually find the right people. So, like, if you're doing Facebook ads for a wellness product, it's like, at least you're getting people to some better end rather than, like you said, something like insurance or I don't know, like beauty products, which I think is like so crazy, the beauty industry, but it's going to be there whether you create it or not because we live in a capitalist nightmare. And like, if you can make money so that you don't have to actually be a part of it as a consumer, I don't think that that's an evil at all. Like, I say that for myself as well because at the end of the day, like, everything that I make is either with me or is like shared in my community. Like I really do think that it's important to be careful and mindful and intentional about what you do with that abundance because we're magnets for abundance and we're attracting it all the time and finding ways to share it and if that means boycotting things like Walmart and Starbucks and all these corporations, like that's for me, like the freedom to be able to do that and to not have to give my abundance to corporations like that feels pretty badass, to be honest. Like I can find everything I need in my community sourced from people, individual people. Like I can buy sauerkraut from a lady that makes it in her house if I'm not making it myself, like I can go and buy vegetables and anything food-wise from people. And that is not the case in the US. It's so hard to do that in the US. Here in Mexico, it's like the norm. Like, of course, yeah, if you want milk, you can just walk down the street to Don Miguel who has some dairy cow. Like, that seems like the most logical thing ever, but, like, that concept is foreign to a lot of Americans.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even just like the inside, I was in New York recently for work, and that's just such a ridiculously big city, And it just dawned on me, it was like nothing in this city is like basically coming from this state. You know what I mean? Like a little bit, but it's just like everything is imported to keep that up and thriving, you know? It's so wild. Like, when have we ever done that in human history where we're so disconnected from the food chains and like the supply chains and all of this?
Yeah, and also, like, not just the products themselves, but the people who make them, the people who are spending 12 hours a day out in the fields picking strawberries or making it possible for the food to even get here. The truck drivers and the people working in the processing facilities, all of those people have touched your food, which is like, yes, thank you. Like, huge gratitude for every single person along that supply chain. But like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean it's like had to change hands so many times to get from the ground to me? And then, they're picking things off the vine when they're not ripe and they're ripening artificially. And it's just so wild. And I'm so grateful that living in Chiapas, it's like it's such an abundant place, like you can go find a farm here in town. Like you don't even have to leave the city limits. And there's a huge farm growing all kinds of vegetables. And also, people here in Chiapas are so amazingly resourceful. Like the amount of people that have little gardens in their homes, maybe they don't have a lot of space in their houses, but they make it a priority to grow their own food, however small a scale. Like there's just culturally more of an effort and emphasis on being connected to the food.
Hmm. Hmm. And the land too. That's like the biggest piece. Like you ask people in Australia, like, where does food come from? And they're like, the grocery store. Yeah, and I feel like for me too, like, don't get me wrong, like the plants are like 100% conscious and I'm with them. And like the people who are like, I'm vegan, and it's like, okay, like I understand, but also like the plants, they're alive, you know what I mean? They're not just these inanimate objects. But like for me, like I was living in a vegan ashram in Canada for a little while and I just couldn't do it. Like my body was just breaking down. So I was like, okay, I need to go and learn the process of like what it means to like do husbandry and have cows and slaughter cows and butcher cows to like really be connected to that whole process. And even just with the meat, like when I was living there, we would slaughter a cow and we would eat that cow as like a little family for an entire year. The one animal. It was like we are eating truffles again, right? And when we think about the meat that we eat, like you go to Costco and you buy mincemeat, there's probably like 50 animals just in that 1 kilo, And there's just something about that that's just not right, outside of like nutrition, just energetically.
Yeah, isn't it wild? I actually grew up eating a lot of venison because my dad was really into deer hunting. I mean, I went hunting with my dad more times than I can count. Now, like, actually killing an animal is like I would do it, of course, if I had to, but it's so difficult for me to process, And I know that there are ways to do so by, honoring the spirit of the animal and using every part of it. Um, I had to kill some chickens when I was in Mozambique. And I say had to because I made myself do it. Nobody was like, your head, you have to do this. But they were like, and here we have the chickens in our yards, and when we need to kill one, we kill it with our bare hands. And I was like, okay, so if I'm going to eat chicken here, and I was a vegetarian when I first got there. So I was like, at first, actually, during training, I had the opportunity to, and I couldn't. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going to kill an animal. what are you talking about? I had been a vegetarian for a long time. Um, but then, like, as I got more used to the idea, and I realized that every time I went to someone's house that I'd never been to before, that their welcome was killing the biggest chicken that they had and making soup out of it. And I was just like, how am I going to say no? Like, you just killed the biggest chicken you had because I just rolled up, you know? Like, first of all, of course, I'm going to eat it. And second of all, if I'm given the opportunity and I'm asked to do the killing, I will do it. And so I did it a few times, and I don't know, like, I'm not gonna say it was, like, comfortable or, like, spiritual necessarily, but, like, feeling an animal die just makes you I don't know, it made me feel so much more appreciative of what that animal gave me in terms of food and nutrition and the energy exchanged as well. It's quite beautiful. Also because, like, the animals live free range. Like, the chickens are, now it's like free range is such a buzzword. It's like, "Oh, these are free range, pasture raised eggs." Ugh. But I'm like, yeah, 60%, 70% of the world has free range chickens, okay? Like, get off your high horse. The whole global south.
Even like the free range as a label is like kind of retarded, especially like when we're in like the US and Australia and stuff. And it's like, oh, it's free range. It means they have access to a lawn. You know what I mean? It's not actually like they're necessarily outside either. You know?
Well, and, like, when people have them, like, around their house, they're interacting with the animals, and not just chickens. I mean, people who have goats and sheep and cows and any animal that they're eventually gonna eat, they're interacting with it on a day-to-day basis, and, whether they're, like, consciously aware of it or not, but there's communication, and I think that if the animals you're going to eat are existing next to you, there's something really roots about that. Really normal. I just find it so normal. That's what our ancestors were doing. They knew they knew the animal that was on their plate later that day. That's that's my dream though. I also like once I have my house built, I really want to have animals. Not necessarily just to eat them, but just to have them around. And have eggs and to be in that kind of environment, I think that there's a lot of wisdom there.
For sure. I mean, when I was living in northern BC and ranch land, like it was awesome. Like people have like a dog or a couple dogs or a cat, in their house. But like I would wake up in the morning, I'd go out, I'd feed the chickens, say hi to all of those, go out, see the cows, feed them. It's like a big old family. Go see the horses. It's like fun. It's like the earth is alive, and you're all like cohabitating. It's epic.
Yeah. Yeah, that cohabitation for me feels really human. It's like living in a concrete box with like neighbors that you've never met in a city that's super polluted feels very not human. And like really counterproductive to me. I know that some people live that way and are probably happy about it, but I could never, like, no. It's just not the dream.
Yeah, no. I'm heading in one direction and it's not that way.
For for sure. Yesterday, I was like riding the motorcycle through some of like the farmland here in Chiapas, and I saw this little valley, and it was just like mostly farms and food, and then a couple little houses, and then forest all around it. And I was just thinking, this is it. Like, this is where that's the dream, and the houses I'm talking like wooden houses, really tiny, basic, super basic, but something in me stirred when I saw that because it just felt like, no, this is actually the goal. Like, this is what I desire. Isn't that funny? Like, when I think about what other people that maybe grew up in the same place as me, what they desire, and then I think about what's what stirs in me and what lights my fire, it's like, how did I even get here? Like, that seems so strange, but I'm happy about it because I feel grateful for my life every single day, like, literally every day. Also, like, I don't know if this happens to you, I'm sure it does, but, like, sometimes I wake up and I'm just like, "Whoa, I get to breathe again today." Like, it is so amazing, like, just being in a human experience, it's such a gift. Like, truly, we could be any being on this earth, and we get to be humans and breathe and dance and hug one another, and the human experience is incredibly rich, and I never take that for granted ever.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, yeah, that's it. And like I've said this before on the podcast, but it's just something that lands so true with me. And my teacher, he says, we're all just looking for something sacred, and like at first, we're so disconnected to the sacred around us that we literally need like these extreme peak experiences of ayahuasca just to remember what the sacred even is. But then like once you really start tuning into that again, it's everywhere. And it's like my life is sacred. And my teacher, he says, like, we come and we drink medicine, and it's like this is ceremony, but like never forget life is the most divine ceremony of them all. And like as each day passes and I evolve, I feel like I get more and more on that wavelength. And it's just like so much gratitude for this life and the learning and the hard days and the good days and the blessings and the love and the friendship and the brotherhood and like all of these things. It's so rich. And it's like, I don't know how I missed it for the first 22 years of my life. You know, I couldn't see it. I didn't have the eyes to see. It's like, how the fuck did I get so far off what was important? I think this segues like kind of nicely into another direction that I want to go in. And like everything we've covered so far, right? Especially like, like along your story and your journey, there's obviously been so much like intuition and callings to go and do what you've done. I'm curious, like from your perspective now, what you see as spiritual growth and like what role the spiritual growth has played in your life.
Wow. Well, I think that, throughout the last however long it's been, like the last decade or so, um, there have been several like wake ups or like, oh shit, this is a big thing I'm supposed to learn. The first one was when my sister had her AVM rupture, which is kind of like an aneurysm. So she went from being a 7-year-old healthy child to being in a hospital bed and not being able to speak or communicate or move. And she's still like that. So it's been 13 years. When that happened, I like the whole spiritual process, I was not aware of it. I didn't know what was going on in me. And I just felt like, okay, there's something more, there's something else. I have to just go there and take a leap of faith. And then when I started traveling, like, throughout Latin America and in Africa as well, like, there were many times that I would have these big wake ups and be like, "Oh shit, okay. Sit down, think about this, absorb." Um, but I think it wasn't until I sat with mushrooms for the first time with psilocybin that I actually realized with my full body and my full spirit what gratitude actually means. And psilocybin is so beautiful in that way because I know that this is like somewhat of a universal experience. I know that maybe not everybody has this experience also, but they really show you what it feels like to have that gratitude present. You know, like, what does it feel like to have every single cell in your body vibrating to the frequency of gratitude? And it's this huge invitation. It's like, okay, I've been shown what this could feel like. If I choose something else, that's on me. If I don't do that, if I don't follow that, that's on me. And how could I not? Like, how am I going to choose something else? Like, to me, there's not a choice. To me, it's like the medicine has shown you something. There's no going back now. You have to just keep leaning into it and keep asking the questions and keep recognizing the sacred wisdom in the plants and the animals and everything around us all the time. So that's kind of what my process has been. I also feel like the every time I sit with medicine, it's always different. Like the core lesson is different. And one of the things that has come through recently with I just sat with Bufo in August. Bufo really showed me my fear. And of course, after everything I've just told you, I've done a lot of things, even if I was scared, like terrified to do it. I still did it anyways. And I went in thinking, I'm scared to do this medicine because I know it's going to be so intense. Because Bufo, like, Sapito is like, you're going to fucking Jupiter, whether you want to go or not. Like, it's taking you somewhere else. Um, and I actually really looked at my fear. And it's funny because when I was coming out of the experience, there were two wasps on this little pole next to me. And I started communing with them. And I was like, why are people afraid of you? Like, why do people run away and they're so afraid to get stung by you? And why do people think that your life is less important because you sting? Like, wasps have a job to do, like everybody does. They're contributing to the greater web of life and the ecosystem and everything. So why would I be afraid of that? And then also, like, comes back to all the little things, like our nervous system sometimes, creates cortisol because we think that we're in a situation of great risk. And cortisol is not necessarily a bad hormone. Of course it's not. It's like the thing that helps us wake up every morning. But like sometimes we overproduce it because in our minds we think that we're at risk somehow and we think that there's something that's going to harm us and we sometimes can't even put our finger on what that is. And so the spiritual growth for me at the moment is recognizing that I don't have to be afraid of absolutely anything. Like, yeah, maybe if I'm about to crash in a plane, I might be a little scared. But actually, like, I don't even think we should be afraid of death. Like, if you can integrate the concept of death and actually accept that you're going to die and you could die at any moment, that's freedom. Because then you live your life without worrying and without having constant fear of thinking about what could go wrong. Does that serve you for anything? Absolutely not. And so for me, it's like at the moment, I know that the only thing that I want to do is make art. And I just want to do that. And I want to spend as much time as possible doing that and being a vessel and listening to the world around me and being grounded and grateful and just soaking up everything about the human experience and just enjoying because I could literally die right now. Actually okay. Like if I died tomorrow, like yeah, look at all the shit that I did, like all the crazy experiences I have. And I won't, obviously hope that I get to reach old age and have even more experiences. But I really think that the key to spiritual growth and life is actually leaning into pleasure and leaning into enjoyment.
Oh, oh, there's so many good bits in there that I could riff off, but I actually just want to leave it there. Like that's the code. And every time I've taken giant leaps into the unknown, it's just been beautiful. And like how often do we let fear dictate what we do with our lives? And nobody gets out alive. Nobody gets out alive. You know what I mean? So like you have to build your relationship with death. And I feel very, very grateful that, you said like if you died today, like you no regrets, like you did the thing, and I feel the same way. Like I have absolutely made the most of my life wherever I could. And like obviously there's like places we can always get better and refine. But like if I died tomorrow, like I did it, you know? And like, wow. Ah, that's gratitude, you know?
Yeah. And also like I think, it's gonna keep getting better. But one thing that's like really key is, yeah, how good can it get? And if it all goes away, it's also going to be fine. Like, trust in yourself and trust in the universe that no matter what happens, even if you die, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm not about to go like jump off a bridge or anything. Like, I don't want to die, of course. But like, if something happened, if I got sick or something like that, I think it would only invite me to lean into aliveness even more and lean into it every day until the end because that's all there is. Like that's really it. Just enjoying.
And to some degree, like, obviously, I'm not planning on dying anytime soon, but like, I'm almost excited, you know, for like what's on the other side of that. Like, that's really the great mystery. Like, no one actually, like, here really has a good idea. I have my suspicions, but like, I'm kind of intrigued. That's like the last voyage. So, man, it's like when that flips, that inverse flips, it's like send it. We only get one life.
With with different medicines, experiencing the ego death is like the closest thing that we have during our lives, unless we have a near death experience, I guess. But like with Bufo, I really did die. Like I completely dissolved into the universe and it was fucking awesome. I am nothing. I am nothing. I'm literally nothing. And I'm everything all the time. Like it's just is this what death like People say that that's what death feels like, people who have had a near-death experience. And I'm like, okay, if that's what it is, like, sure, fine. Like, I don't know what's after that, but the process seems pretty cool, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, even like the Shipibo down in the jungle, when they talk about ayahuasca, they say like, "Come drink a little death," like, come get close to what that is, so that like you're ready for yours. You know?
Yeah, imagine like I can't yeah, I the concept I'm sure that they have of their own deaths. I wonder where they go, like the ayahuasqueros. Like they're so close to it all the time. They're constantly practicing for death. When they actually die, whoa.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, and you hear these stories, of like the really high level people, and like all around the world, like in the game of consciousness, and they get so attuned to the process of life and reincarnation and all of this, that they actually choose when to leave. They're like, "I'm just gonna leave now, and it's done." And they just cross over, like their mission here is finished. you know
Like the yogis, I can't remember which yogi it was that chose his death. I'm sure there are plenty of examples of this, but I've heard of one in particular that sticks out that, yeah, he just chose, I think it was after something he accomplished, and he was like, well, I've done what I needed to do now, so it's time to go on. And of course, in that tradition, they're like to nirvana or like whatever the next life being is. I don't know, but yeah, he was just ready and he just like spontaneously died.
Uh-huh. That's the way.
Well, they couldn't figure out what happened to him. And I was like, well, that's because modern science does not have explanations for anything non-material. And like, it's so limited in explaining these things. Yeah. And like, how can you fit scientific vocabulary around an experience like that? Of course not.
Mhm. Wow, beautiful. Okay, I got one last question. So, as someone who's lived an amazing life and has traveled all around the world, what does home mean to you?
Home is a feeling. For me, it's not a place. The closest thing I have to home is San Cristobal, where I live now. But I think that I'm tethered to this place because of the people that I share it with. And that has everything to do with me and nothing to do with the place necessarily. So I think that home is something that you always carry with you. It's a feeling of comfort within yourself and trust in yourself and confidence that no matter where you are, you will be safe and held and find the people that are supposed to be in your life. You'll find your teachers, your mentors, your community, your support system. But yeah, it's not necessarily just a place. You can find the feeling of home anywhere, anywhere that you choose.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Absolutely. I've had many homes in many locations, but they've all been home. That's it. Okay. Thank you so much, Emily. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking to me. Do you have any projects that you're working on right now that you want to plug? People can find you.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed this. I was pretty nervous because I've never been on a podcast before, but all good things. Yeah, if anyone wants to follow along with my ceramic art. I'm on Instagram at ember.ceramica. And there will be new and good things to come. There's some good content on there about my recent residency in Peru. And then there will be some good stuff on there when I go to Brazil in March to pursue more ceramics content. So, yeah, anybody can follow me there.
Beautiful. I'll put links to everything below as well, or wherever they go, so people can find you nice and easy. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All my relations.
All my relations. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed the show. If you did enjoy the show, don't forget to like and subscribe below. It really helps a growing channel like this out. And click up here. It'll take you to a collection of the best this podcast has to offer.